So, today is a Norsca and Beastmen day. That's right, I'm practicing rushes. And we are, oh hey, Lord Master of Sotek. Yeah, today we're practicing rushes. And, yeah, our first opponent is going to be Razel. So we fought a fairly ranged heavy build with a lot of javelins. This is standard Norsca fare. Where to deal with skink skirmishers, you have your chariots, and you're going to try shooting the lizardmen to death. Let's see, some skinks are moving up, so we'll just pull away, and we'll see if we can get our chariots on top of them. There's a lot of cavalry here, and we'll hit them with our ranged skirmishers, while just sending in our front line to engage. This army is fairly difficult to skirmish, so we don't really want to be prolonging that, and instead, yeah, just advancing as quickly as possible is likely going to be the most effective plan of attack here. Our infantry is advantaged against the skinks, and less so against these Saurus warriors in the back. So we'll have to be careful there. But as our marauders get into the fight, we should be pretty good. Our javelins are moving in to support the right flank, and they're also able to push back the salamanders along the left. And the name of the game here are our chariots. We can control them well enough, they should be able to win us the game here. Let's see, and yeah, it's just about managing these flanks. Our javelins don't really want to be throwing at infantry just yet, and we're going to push them forwards to hit the back line. Meanwhile, Wulfric is going to be, I guess, using his boat to help win this situation. And if our javelins can shut down the cavalry, we should be good. Meanwhile, on this left flank, we're being pushed back by all the counter skirmish here. So we'll just disengage there until we can find a better fight. For Krokgar, looks like a Manticore summon did go down. We don't want to fight that just yet with Wulfric. So we'll pull him back. See if we can get him out of there. Looks like he does manage to make it out. And with the infantry running low here, I think we can throw in, we can try sniping out Krokgar. Let's see, our cavalry will be trying to shut down the salamanders now. We'll be charging them into melee. And then that should work out pretty well. Krokgar is now taking a lot of damage. We're using Wulfric to debuff him massively. And with the salamanders shut down, our elite infantry should be able to do well. And our chariots, too, can continue bouncing around without being too threatened. It does mean our Marauder horsemen will likely take a lot of damage, but I think the trade is worth it. Just because it should be able to secure us a win condition. Krokgar, too, is looking very rough. It looks like my dive in onto him was correct. But now that he's retreating into his skink skirmishers, I think it's better that we disengage here. Wulfric is not especially tanky against these skirmishers, and with the salamanders actually free now, we do not want them to cause me too much trouble. Hand of the Gods goes down on Wulfric, and the skink priest, oh, he just barely manages to get down that summon. I tried to knock him down with my horsemen, but we reacted a little bit too slowly. The main threats here is that the Manticore summon would go onto Wulfric and snipe out my lord. We definitely don't want that. But instead it looks like it tries to peel for, just hits my horse skirmishers here. That's a hit to my mobility. I would be more worried, but we do still have our chariots operational. And the chariots will be more than enough to actually take care of everything here. They'll be able to chase down the skink skirmishers, and as long as they don't get hit too hard by these salamanders, I think they should be fine. Wulfric, looks like the Manticore actually did disengage to dive in on Wulfric, so he's in a bit of trouble, but we'll run away with him. And as long as you move sort of at a 90-degree angle from where the Manticore is attacking, it's usually enough to dodge its attacks, and that's generally the strategy. if you don't want Manticore summons to hit your more mobile lords. So there we go. We'll continue running away from it just to really make sure that it won't catch us. And let's see. It looks like Krokar's actually shutting down my my chariots, which is a little bit worrisome. So instead of actually losing that means that we can't play as aggressively towards the lizard men anymore. We don't have the mobility to really do so, and instead we'll have to just regroup and then try to advance on the salamanders all at once. Our main mobility is going to be Wulfric, and he can't take a lot of damage, but as long as we play carefully with him, we should be fine. Looks like a Flock of Doom comes down on top of my troops. Definitely not optimal. But we are able to push back the salamanders. We're also running out of ammunition, and with our horsemen coming back, I think we'll be okay. Oh, Hand of the Gods comes down, and it thankfully doesn't do too much damage. You can finally throw down another final transmutation onto Krokar, and this should be able to finish him off. Oh, I actually cast a spell to negate some damage there. But now that he actually got in range of my caster, we can throw down a final transmutation. That should be able to kill him. So there we go, Krokar's out of the question. And it's just hunting down these salamanders, but army losses have kicked in. It looks like we just barely squeaked by a win today. Okay, so Hand of the Gods, very scary versus Wulfric. I didn't really account for the damage it could have done, and the fact that Wulfric took so much damage early on was a little bit sketchy. The fact that he was high HP was more of a coincidence than intentional, but it did pay off in the end, seeing that he just barely managed to survive that onslaught. The salamanders for Razel did pretty well, especially the Umbral Tide. They were very hard to shut down. And sending in my horsemen into melee against them might have been a bad idea. Perhaps instead skirmishing and using my ammunition would have done better. But other than that, I do really like the chariots. They're great versus the skinks. They performed quite well there. The Marauder champions held really well too. So here we go. Our next game is Beastmen against Wood Elves. We only have the one caster. He's a little bit vulnerable to sniping, but he has two abilities to use a lot of Winds of Magic if he needs to. That's Traderkin and Vile Tide, enough to deal with a blob and to hit some infantry. For my opponent, it looks like he has a relatively small army, few Glade Riders, and I'm expecting him to have some type of skirmishing core here. This is a little bit too thin. He also has War Dancers as Rise Spears, which means that there's about 3,000 gold worth of units left unaccounted for. Wood Elves are actually a pretty surprisingly easy faction to count prices on, just because they have very few troops and their armies of this type of build can be quite similar. So I'm actually quite well acquainted with what to expect. Now, it's looking like a heavy box formation, not a full-out box, but a defensive formation of spears with a lot of skirmishers. We're going to try diving in onto them with our cavalry. We can time that engagement well. That should lead to a victory. We are taking a lot of damage though, just trying to engage. But we do have our archers finally getting on top of the onto our opponent's archers. We can also try to fit in some spears. And at this point, we want to start casting some magic. These are Way Watchers, Hawkeyes of Drakira. We want to be taking them out. And our cavalry is going to be hitting the... it's going to be hitting the sides. And we're going to try breaking the front line. Oh, my mouse just stopped moving. No, not like this. There we go, we're fine. So, yeah, we're going to try and actually break the center line formation here. Orion has moved in to ruin my day. And if we can just win the infantry fight, then we should be able to just push in with them and clear out the wood elves. So we've summoned some chaos spawn, and we're going to just send them into the back line while leaving one to deal with these spears. Mogre might get hunted down by Orion, so we'll just pull him back to safety. And with our huge cavalry advantage, it looks like we should be able to secure a pretty nice lead here. We've collapsed in onto the back line of the wood elves, and their glade riders just simply aren't strong enough to actually hold here against our cavalry. And there we go. That's a lot of the cavalry down. That's the front line broken. And now we're just going to leave the chaos spawn fighting Orion while we finish up the rest of the wood elf forces. Now, Orion can be quite scary, so we're going to start figuring out ways to deal with him right now instead of waiting for the late game. The main resources to deal with him are going to be our archers. You don't, the archers do enough damage to him, where even after Cloak of Isha procs, they'll still be able to actually finish him off. So keeping those archers safe will be paramount. But in this case, it looks like we just collapsed in well enough where we didn't really need to worry about Orion. So there we go. That's a second win. That was actually quite fast. And yeah, that went pretty well. Essentially, we dived in onto these expensive archer units here. We shut them down with our own archers. And at the same time, we were breaking down the front line. So from there, there wasn't really much he could do. Our cavalry advantage was actually quite massive. And that really caused a lot of problems. Without something like the Sylvan Knights or Wild Riders, that can definitely happen. Oh yeah, and he didn't have a caster. Now, with this Beastmen game against, Mythal, we have sort of a kite build going down. Up against his greenskins, we've taken a ton of cavalry. We're going to be using our Ungor Raiders for the main source of damage. We'll be avoiding engagements in the front line as much as we possibly can, and cycle charging a whole ton. There are a lot of archers here, though, that we'll want to back up from. So, yeah, we'll just pull away from that, bring in our own archers, and then start firing at the big guns. Our cavalry will be pulling back to avoid most of the damage from these skirmishers. And if we can get our chariots in, that should actually work out pretty well. Looks like those are just orc archer boys. Not too scary. And let's see here. Looks like our chariots should be able to hold, so we'll feint a charge into this unit of big guns. Oh, but a net actually goes down, and it looks like they're going to get focus fired. A little bit unfortunate, and a misread on my part. We actually didn't really look at the lord from my opponent, and we lose about 500 gold due to it worth of chariots. Definitely a rough start, but now that we have our archers underway, things could go better for us. Let's see, our archers are doing good damage to the big guns. Looks like trolls have exposed themselves, so we'll be able to get a charge in on them. And I guess we'll throw down a spirit leech on these big guns too. So our Centaurs are taking a lot of damage with the engagement against the trolls. But let's see, I think they should be able to win it out. We just need to cause a break. We also get a solid charge onto these boar boys. And our archers are doing quite nicely against all these big guns. We'll pull them back now, since the front line of the greenskins is advancing. And if we can take out the trolls, then we'll be good. For this right flank, we'll be pulling back. This cavalry can't really chase us, just due to how low HP it is. And now that the greenskins are being pulled apart a bit, we can even jump onto these archers. So these stone trolls, we'll use Mogre to use a chaos spawn summon. That should be able to finish them off. And then yeah, it's just shutting down this center area of archers here. Looks like they are having a mass rout now. Stone trolls 2 on their way out, and our archers are still operational. We're threatening the right flank with this massive cavalry corps, And it keeps these stone trolls busy. Which means that they won't really be able to support these archers in the center. Now that the stone trolls have pulled in, we can move in with our cavalry and use them to chase off all of these troops. It's pretty imperative that we actually chase off the stone trolls though. So we'll be focusing on that, making sure that these centaurs properly chase them. And for Warzag, we'll be sending in our chaos spawn, our cavalry, and Mogre. Ogre's not too worried about getting sniped out, so we're happy to we're happy to have Mogre fight here. He has regeneration too. Should work pretty well. We'll even throw down a Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma on him just to slow him down. And that means we should be able to catch him and get a kill here. He nets down my skirmishers, or my cavalry, however. So that does actually buy him a little bit of time to escape. But currently, I think our lead is strong enough where we're really just not too worried about anything. The stone trolls are now off the battlefield. And it's all about, just cleaning up the greenskin forces. Our cavalry will be able to finish chasing off Warzag. We have hounds coming in too. And we can also throw down a pretty painful pendulum along this side to deal with the big guns. There's really just this one high HP unit of trolls left. It's looking like a GG for my opponent. So things went pretty well there. Our big collapse into the back line of the greenskins did pretty good. And we shut down a lot of archers that way. We did lose a few centaurs to the flanks, a few more than I would have hoped for. But nevertheless, things went quite well. Looks like the stone trolls are out of the picture too. And with some focus fire on the big guns, should be army losses. So there we go, pretty solid game. Looks like Showtime's idea, or at least my implementation of it, worked out pretty well. The stone trolls, although threatening, weren't really enough to cover all the flanks for the greenskins. So with our superior mobility, we just ran over all of the archers. The Ungor Raiders, the ranged fire, were very effective versus the big guns. And I quite liked them. He couldn't really do much to counter them. But I'm not sure if this greenskin build is optimal against what I brought as the Beastmen. We definitely could have played better too with our cavalry. Like, we did well, but we took some bad engagements. But generally, that worked out okay. So here we go, what may be the final game for today. Norsca versus the Dwarves. Bought a whole ton of range units. And it looks like for my opponent, he's only bought one gyrocopter. Build consists of a, just a bolt thrower. And a lot of range units with slayers. So that means that my infantry should be able to win out the fight here. And let's see, dodge out the bolt throwers. We can move our horsemen to the flanks. He has some thunderers too, but his front line is actually extremely thin. Just really some iron drakes and slayers, really. So that's pretty encouraging. And a full surround with our axe throwers should be able to cause a lot of issues here. See, we'll be warding off the gyrocopters, our axe throwers, and yeah, we just want to get a solid engage onto his army. Let's see, we'll position slightly outside the range of these iron drakes, and then rush in with the axemen to try and overwhelm them. Be throwing in the skirmishers too. Now that we're in range of the bolt thrower, the goal to move into position as quickly as we can. We want to sit just outside the range of thunderers, and that's going to be right over here. So there we go, just the early stages of the game. We'll be throwing down pendulums onto the thunderers too as the engage happens. That way they'll either get hit or have to reposition, and either way that means that our troops won't be getting shot at. He does push up with a few thunderers though, and hits my axemen for a lot of damage. Maybe just a tiny bit of damage, really. So that should be fine. And we'll have to figure out a way to deal with these iron drakes. I imagine they'll be a little bit annoying. So let's see how it goes. Thunderers have moved in. They've stopped moving, which means that they're about to fire. And that's when we're going to hit them with the boat. Looks like it does decent damage. And now that these Thunderers are firing, we'll also throw down a pendulum. And we just want to engage as quickly as possible. Wolfric will be charging in, same with our Axemen, to make sure that the Slayers don't shut down my troops. And it looks like our engagement timing has gone pretty well. Our Axe Throwers will be hitting the Thunderers, as the Thunderers are quite high DPS, and our Infantry can deal with the Slayers. They'll lose in that situation, but they generally trade up well into them. Wolfric will be bouncing around the back line to make sure that the dwarf units are always occupied, and also to make sure that he doesn't get caught by Ungrim here. Grim can be quite scary, and we definitely don't want Wolfric to be facing off against him. More pendulums going down. They do great against the Thunderers. They are the main threat here. And our horsemen appear to be doing quite well. We've routed off some of the Dowie forces too. And let's see here. Yeah, we want to make sure that we actually escort them off the map. Now Ungrim is going to keep chasing Wolfric. Some bombs are actually going down on my troops too. But I think we should be doing okay. We'll have to be a bit careful, and we really want to chase off these Thunderers. Some of the dwarf units too are starting to rally. And that's a bit worrisome. Oh, we lose some horsemen off to the edge of the map too. And let's see. It looks like... yeah, things could get a little bit dicey here. It could get a little bit dicey. We still have Axemen though. Wolfric is safe. And if we can pull them to rout off these Thunderers, that would be the best case scenario. Some horsemen too to finish off these troops. And if we can actually win the... if we can win the melee fight against the infantry, that's going to be our saving grace. We'll throw down a boat to catch out some Slayers. Should work out pretty well. And let's see, the miners are having a rough time, but our front line is sort of collapsing. That's going to be a little bit of a problem. But Wolfric is still healthy. Can still continue bouncing around the dwarf back line. And we still have our axe throwers, which is nice. Wolfric, though, is taking a lot of damage. It appears he's getting slowed by the Slayers. We do manage to catch out some Iron Drakes, and if we can take them out, that would be optimal. Wolfric is taking a lot of damage, but it's the last HP point that counts, or perhaps the last leadership value. So as long as he can actually make it out of this alive, he should be fine. But these Slayers are posing quite a threat. They're actually slowing him down a lot. And it's going to be a little bit questionable if he can make it out. It looks like he will, though, thanks to the support of our infantry. But not before taking a lot of damage. He actually gets beat up pretty hard. But he does manage to make it out alive. And that's what's going to be important here. We now have our Marauders engaging on the Slayers. A good trade. And meanwhile, over here, it looks like the infantry is trading about evenly. So not the worst case scenario. Ungrim, trying to make it back to his forces, defend them, is going to be slowed by Wolfric's ability. And if we can avoid the bolt thrower shots with him, that should be good. If Wolfric actually routs here, that would be pretty terrible. But it looks like his leadership is barely holding. And we also have this Fimir still alive too. So things are going okay, still a little bit dicey, especially because the back line here for the dwarves is recovering. And our horsemen are pretty low HP. So we'll have to see how this goes. These Iron Drakes are able to fire in on my troops, and the leadership debuff can be quite large. And I'm still worried about this bolt thrower. So we're going to dive into it with Marauders. And nice, it does look like we do manage to get it to disengage. There's only a few Thunderers left for the Dowie. But still, a few, just a couple Gyrocopters. And actually, those Gyrocopters would be able to take out Wulfric if they get close. So we're pretty worried there, but luckily for us, they actually dive into my Marauder, axe throwers, and they actually rout them off. So a big misplay from my opponent. I think he could have actually killed off Wulfric there with them. But instead, diving into those Marauders means that they will be running off the map. So that's pretty nice. We still have some pretty good ammunition on our troops, and now I'm feeling pretty confident. Our opponent does have a decent lead in the balance of power, but I think our troops are a nice advantage here. The fact that he only has Ungrim left is actually quite huge, and he's influencing the balance of power a lot in the favor for the dwarves. He's influencing the balance of power a lot for them, just because he's high HP and he's a lord. But he's actually not too threatening. We'll be able to hit him with our axes, and then that should be able to win us the game. We just have to make sure we don't give him a straight up fight. So the plan is we'll bring in Wulfric and slow him down, then target fire him with our axes. So we'll bring in all of our ranged troops while using our infantry to chase off the rest of the dwarves. And now we just need to get the slow on him. See, we have our axes targeting in. I expect that he will be dodging. But as soon as we get the slow off, then we should be in a nice position. So Ungrim just dancing around, trying to dodge shots. But now we're going to slow him down, turn our axes to fire, and that should be able to get some pretty nice damage. As for these guys, we'll turn off fire at will. And let's see, Ungrim is juking quite a bit, so we can move in a little bit closer with our axe throwers. And then, and this will actually increase our ability to hit him. He's still getting slowed, so his jukes won't be too great. And then, yeah, we should be able to take him out. Balance of power now swinging it into our favor, now that he's taken some axes to the face. And he can't really charge any of these units, since he'll be taking a lot of damage on the approach. He does make it to one of my axe throwers, the one with ammunition too, which is a little bit suboptimal. But we can just disengage with those guys while we charge him with cavalry, and just get him stuck in the fight. Wulfric 2 can move in to cycle charge him, but we'll wait for Hunter of Champions before we do that. It'll just be a little bit safer, and it'll make sure that we don't accidentally throw the game here. Some more axes to go in on Ungrim. He will dodge, but it's close enough range where we still get to do a lot of damage. He is moving in towards Wulfric now, though. We'll chase him down with these Marauder Hunters, and he won't really be able to catch Wulfric on a mammoth. At 56 speed to Ungrim's 32, he is simply too slow. So fire at will be turned off to make sure we don't friendly fire our troops. And as soon as we have Hunter of Champions up, I think the game will be over. There'll be a big charge in from Wulfric and this Fimir, and then a solid win. So let's see, that's Hunter of Champions in 3 seconds. Shall charge Ungrim, our heroes. We'll debuff them, we'll increase our melee attack, and that should be able to kill him. Anything outside of extremely unlucky RNG will win it. And you can see his melee defense is 0 currently, which means that we are hitting him, and with the melee attack buff on Wulfric too, it means that we're hitting him with the highest likelihood possible, essentially. Basically capping that out, he takes 2 hits to the face, and that's going to be GG. So there we go. Dwarves, not too scary in this instance, although that game was still pretty close. The main problem was that I took a lot of damage on Wulfric that I didn't really need to take. And our Marauder Horsemen were a little bit too aggressive. They actually took a lot of damage. A lot of them routed off the map. And that allowed the Thunderers to come back into play. After the Thunderers rallied, caused a lot of problems. So I think once again, it's all about controlling my cavalry. Now the big winners here are these Marauder Axe Throwers. 1700 damage value. That is quite good. And this is why you take these guys. Yeah, simple as that. See, if we look at the damage value on the ranged troops, we only shut them down semi-effectively. Okay, so GG. You don't really need Hunter of Champions versus Dwarves, that's correct. It's not, yeah, you don't really need this. You don't even need Fight or Die, really, either. And it's better to take more range units, but there we go. That's going to be it for today. I need my rest so that we may stream on Sunday. So thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. Let's see, there's not too much I really need to cover, but next time you'll see me is going to be on Sunday, where we will be streaming the, what's it called? I should have the link somewhere here. Yes, the Blind Man's Cup over here. If you're on YouTube, the VOD will be posted the day after the stream. Hope you're excited to see that.